Hello there and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast with your hosts Laz Michaelides and Felipe Amorim. Felipe, how you doing, man?
All good here, man, and you?
Good, yeah, not too bad, not too bad. It's been a while, isn't it? We've had a couple of weeks off, just doing our own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've been a bit lazy lately. No, not really. You've been through a surgery, haven't you?
That's true. Yeah, actually, do you know what? That's true. So for viewers, check it out. This is my arm. I've had surgery on my arm for little fragments of bone that's been sort of keeping me out from playing my rugby, from playing the bass. Do you know what? I'm going to get closer just so the viewers can see it better.
Oh, man.
Look at that. I didn't even show you, did I?
So I thought you were just replacing your arm by like a kind of
just get a
bionic
thing.
One. Yeah. No, just
don't need to practice the bass anymore, do I?
I think you turn yourself into a Terminator or something like that.
And if I do that, I won't need to learn or practice the bass. I'll just set the arm to John Paul Jones and I'll just go away, isn't it?
Exactly.
Welcome back, guys. This episode is coming out after we've had a bit of a summer break. So we for those who don't know, we do pre-record episodes sort of a couple of weeks in advance so that we make sure we have enough content for you. So by the time this comes out, I'll have been to Greece and back, and Felipe's going to have gone to Spain and back as well. So for you guys, for the audience and the listeners, it will have been a couple of weeks since you've heard us because we skipped an episode cycle. So yeah, welcome back. As usual, I'm just going to start the episode off by asking you guys to go and follow us on our social media. Give us a like, a comment, a subscribe on YouTube. Any of those reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts is going to do us the world of good, because the more you review us, the more reviews we get, the more we are seen by people, and the more our position in the rock and roll / music history podcast charts, the higher we go. So we can ask a small favor of you. You know, we're an independent podcast. We're providing you guys with episodes. We do it because we love the music. We love talking about the music that we're discussing. We hope you guys enjoy it too. So if you could just do us a small favor and give us a like, a comment, a review, a subscribe, that'd be really appreciated. So what we're going to do is we're actually following the success of the last episode we did, which was covers versus originals part 1. We've decided we're going to go and do a second episode. And I think I said this in the last episode, but we are actually going to do loads of these. And it's not going to be like, we're not going to do 9 in a row, but we might do a couple of albums, then a covers episode, 5 or 6 more albums, a covers episode, because it is really cool, because the audience seemed to love it. They really enjoyed it. And we've enjoyed it as well, because we're discovering new music, songs that we didn't know were by certain bands. And what's best is that you guys have been getting involved as well. And today, the 4 cover songs we're doing, 2 of them have been chosen by you guys, by our listeners. So thank you, because I put out a story on Instagram about telling us about your favorite covers. You got back to us and we've got a long list that we're going to spread them into the next cover episodes we do. But keep sending us them, because we want to do more of these episodes. So you tell us the covers you love and we'll get them involved in the episode in some way.
It's like a gig, isn't it? The best moments when you have audience participation.
That's it. And what's a gig without an audience? What's a show without an audience?
Exactly. It's the first time actually that we get people involved to this level, like people actually suggesting topics for the episodes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's great with covers, isn't it? Because with covers, you can have it's personal. Someone can tell us a song that they really enjoy.
Yeah. And I don't know how we started this topic. I think I don't know if you mentioned a song that you've preferred the cover than the original. And last time we did, we chose the favorites, isn't it? Do you prefer the cover? Do you prefer the original? Yep. Are we going to do that again? Are we going to have an overall score?
We're going to do it. And then whenever, touch wood, it never happens, but whenever this podcast comes to an end, we're going to give you the final score. And I hope it's going to be something like covers 1,327, originals 1,819. I really hope we do that many episodes. But yeah, the aim of this episode is we want to find out in a massively overgeneralizing way what is better, the cover or the original. So let's get into episode 2 of covers versus originals. We got 4 songs for you as per usual, 1 chosen by Felipe, 1 chosen by myself, and 2 chosen by our listeners. Should we crack on with the first one?
Yes. Who chose the first one?
I chose the first one.
All right.
I did, yes. So the first song, again, as usual, guys, the playlist for this episode is in the show notes. So go down, click below, and you can go and have a listen to the versions of the songs we're listening to as well. Now, the first song is Wilson Pickett's cover of Hey Jude, originally done by the Beatles. Do you want to go for it, man? Why don't you tell us your favorite?
Do you know what? I want to talk about the original first.
Do it.
Because that's to start with, that song was written by Paul McCartney for Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, right? So it's a famous story. Most people know about it. John Lennon was going through a divorce. His son was really sad. Paul McCartney wrote that song, to kind of say to Julian, everything's going to be all right. Don't worry about that. And it's just like, it's an honest, very genuine kind of reason to write the song. And it's a beautiful song. I like the fact that there's a build up in the arrangement. It's just piano and vocals first, and then acoustic guitar, and then the drums, and it keeps building up, and then more vocal harmonies all the way to the end. And probably the most impressive thing about that song is that 4 of the 7 minutes of that song are the na na nas at the end.
Yeah.
And they just keep singing that na 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 for 4 minutes. And George Martin, the producer, was against that. Said, guys, it's like we destroying this beautiful single. That could be a hit. It's not going to be. The radios won't play this if we make it that long. Exactly. And John Lennon said they will play it if it's us. And he was right, because that was 9 weeks at #1 in the US charts.
Wow.
So yeah. So it's definitely John Lennon was right about it. Although I don't know if it was McCartney's idea who came up with the na-na-nas at the end, but super cool. What I find interesting about Wilson Pickett's version, which I didn't know until you chose this one, is it's a complete different take on a song that everyone knows. And and it turned a kind of a pop ballad into a really like funky soul song, isn't it?
Quite Motown-y, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, he made it like that's the way he normally arranges and writes songs. He didn't. You might think, well, he did something completely different than the original, but not completely different from his own style. That's how normally he would write a song. I think he arranged and recorded the song the way he would do with any of his own compositions or any other things he would do. So it's not surprisingly different from his own catalog, but really different from the Beatles one. And as soon as he started, I was actually thinking about it before I played the song. I was like, how is that going to go? How can a guy like Wilson Pickett do anything acceptable out of Hey Jude? And I loved it. I don't know, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, Have you said all you want to say about Wilson Pickett's version?
No, I do have my notes here, which I
feel like why don't you say everything? Because then I've also got stuff to say about the Beatles version. So why don't you say everything, and then I'll say what I've got to say.
Okay, so basically, that was released in December 1968 as a single before the album, and the album was named Hey Jude as well. The interesting thing is, got Dwayne Allman from the Allman Brothers before the Allman Brothers playing guitar, and the guitar is one of the best things about the song. It's just beautiful. Yeah. The whole thing, the whole arrangement. There's a guy that I never heard of, said Jerry Jemmett, the bass player.
Yeah.
A session guy that I never heard of. What a phenomenal bass line he composed for the song, because it's like ever changing, which it's a dangerous thing to do as a bass player. A good solid bass line that works in a commercial kind of context is when you loop the bass line. You change the chords, but you keep playing the same groove over and over. That's the most effective way of playing a bass line that's consistent. Yes. Am I right? So he keeps changing it. Like every bar is a different story. But it's so groovy. It's just so groovy. I love it. So the song gets slightly heavier towards the end, and the guitar gets beefier. I like that. So just the fact that he turned into a funk song, it's so different from the original that I love that. One thing that song made me think of is so regardless on how different the vocal performance is, because Paul McCartney's delivery is just so emotional and beautiful.
It's simplicity versus it's simplicity and emotion versus a bit more showmanship, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Wilson Pickett wanted to kind of display his vocal technique and range, and he did it in a like wonderful way. I'm talking more about the arrangements than the vocals. Obviously, his vocals are impressive.
Yeah.
But I think you have to give credit to McCartney, because the melody is so good that it works in a complete different genre. It's the melody. Yeah. It's way bigger than the song itself, than the arrangements. The melody is just phenomenal. The fact that he works with a different singer in a different genre, it shows you how good the composition is, isn't it? That's all I want to say.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah. So for me, we spoke about the vocals, and despite the fact that Wilson Pickett is kind of showing off a little bit, overall, I prefer his vocals. But especially at the start, there's little parts where, when you're comparing them, Paul McCartney goes, "Hey Jude, don't make it bad." Wilson Pickett would, I'm over exaggerating for the sake of my argument, but Wilson Pickett would go, "Hey Jude, don't make it bad." He'll do those runs, which I feel that isn't always necessary. Sometimes less is more. And so I feel in that sense, I like, especially when he starts shouting, he's like, "You were made to go out and get her." He's shouting down the mic. I love that delivery. But certain aspects, like I said, excuse me, sometimes when it does feel like a bit of showmanship, like he's trying to display his vocal talent, whereas you feel that McCartney is just trying to get a story across, or, whatever the song's about. Now, one thing I do love is the instrumentation on Wilson Pickett's version, because with the Beatles, you obviously got the guitar. It's all a normal Beatles instrumentation, but it's got a piano, isn't it? It's very piano heavy. And the thing that I think is that there's often times where John Lennon comes in and does backing vocals on the second half of the second verse and the first half of the third verse, and it's not entirely consistent. And then in one verse, the horns swell in at the end, and then in the other verse, they don't do that. And I just feel that the strength of the instrumentation in Wilson Pickett's version does it a lot of justice, especially where the fact you've got these horns and they're not there to show off and to say, right, now this is a Motown band, let's do this. It's just, hey, and then we're just back into the normal instrumentation. So he hasn't put the horn. I mean, they come in again at the end to do the na-na-nas, and that's very epic, I think. But I just like the instrumentation; just feels more solid in Wilson Pickett's version. I just feel like there's a clarity there. We know what we're getting. You mentioned the bass, and that is the thing that originally attracted me to this song. The bass playing, isn't it just magnificent, man?
It's just brilliant.
It's a typical Motown bass line, because what you do with a Motown bass line is, as Felipe said, a normal pop song. If you're going from one note, you're going like doom 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 boom 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 boom. That might be how a pop song goes, or a standard rock song. In Motown, what you're going to do is, because the guitar, right, with Motown, the emphasis is on the vocals. You want to hear what you want to hear the lyrics, you want to hear the vocal melody. So the guitars aren't doing overly much, the drums aren't doing overly much, the horns aren't doing overly much. The bass, being the link between the harmony of the guitars and the horns and the rhythm of the drums, it has the freedom to kind of explore that. And if you listen, I mean, just check out songs again. These will all be in the playlist. For Once in My Life by Stevie Wonder. It's a Shame by, I can't remember who did that, but it was both the same bass player, a guy called James Jamerson, who was a master at fully exploring the chord. Because if you're just playing one note, boom, boom, that's one note. Is it a major chord? Is it a minor chord? Is it augmented? What James Jamerson and Motown bassists did is they'd play around the chord. So instead of hearing boom, 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 you'd get boom, just using all the notes in that scale to kind of fit around the rest of the instruments. And that's what's done so fantastically here, is that he really is just playing every chord. But let me ask you a question. Do you feel he's overplaying?
No.
Good.
That's
I agree.
The thing. I feel like he's changing the story. As a drummer, I sometimes struggle when I'm jamming with someone or playing with bass players who don't stick to the bass line, or they don't play something consistent, and I call them moving targets. So some bases are moving targets. So like, come on, man. Like I want to be able to play with you. So you're not playing with me, you're playing against me.
Yeah.
So you got to be really good and really creative and make the right choices for every single note when you want to do a bass line that changes every time, but it still sounds groovy. And I think what makes it groovy is the rhythm, regardless of how many notes it plays. The rhythm is consistent and it's funky, and it does tell the story. And I would say this, man, the bass and the drums are the biggest contribution of this cover version. I would say that, like, if we have to pick one thing per song, per cover, so you're going to have a reason to listen to a different version of a song that you like.
Yeah.
And I would say that the bass line on its own is a reason to listen to this.
Good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. Just a few more parts to add from myself. Now, this might be... I didn't think we'd do one in this episode, but we will. We'll do a quick Laz Unleashed. There we go. So in this version of Laz Unleashed, you're going to hear an opinion that, I don't know, most British people, maybe even yourself as well, disagree with. I do not like the ending of Hey Jude, the Beatles version. I think it's too long. I think it's very boring, very repetitive. And I know that it's got all the Judy, Jude, 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 and John Lennon screaming, or Paul McCartney, whoever it was. But it got to a point when I was listening, and I got to the na 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 bits, and I thought, right, do you know what? And I was being objective, I was like saying, right, the song should end here for me. And I looked on the phone, and there was like 3 minutes more of it. And I was like, I can't ever be bothered to listen to that song in full, which is a shame because I love the Beatles. You know this. I love the Beatles. They're one of my favorite bands, and I can appreciate how important they are to music.
I think they wanted to. I think they intentionally wanted to release the longest single
to make a point.
Yeah, I think there's something about it, and it was. Yeah, the longest kind of single
number one,
that reached number one at the time or something like that. So I think it was intentional, but for me, it's like the Beatles just proving that they could do anything just because they were the Beatles.
Yeah, and that's
it's like it's kind of as a story is really cool. But I'm with you. I skipped the ending.
Yeah,
which I rarely do with any songs.
I just feel that the Wilson Pickett ending actually has interesting stuff about it. Once the horns are done there, you've got the guitar solo, Duane Allman sort of soloing over in the background. You've got the horns doing their part and sort of replicating some of the na-na-na parts. And then right at the very end, you've got the choir coming in. And I just thought that it's a really great journey to be taken on, because you are right. The Beatles version kind of goes like this, doesn't it? It kind of goes from here. You got Paul and the piano, then the band comes in, and then you got here, and then you got the massive ending. And then it just kind of like stays there forever. Whereas Wilson Pickett's version, it kind of stays in the same flow, doesn't it? For the first 2/3 of the song. And then when it gets to the end, that's when it takes you on the upwards trajectory. So you kind of sat there thinking, right, well, I've spent 2 minutes listening to this song. It's good, but is there going to be a payoff? Yes. Nah. But Wilson Pickett's way of doing it. And that, for me, elevates it. So you got a song that kind of like starts a brilliant journey and then kind of goes a bit flat, and a song that starts and stays in one way and then ascends. So it's just about what you like, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Totally agree with you. Yeah, exactly.
One more thing I just wanted to say is that despite the fact that I prefer Wilson Pickett's vocal performance, there is something just so soothing, familiar and comforting about Paul's voice, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just I feel like he's talking directly to Julian.
Yeah. Do you know what the song's about?
I think it's like
what's the...
Well, it's as I said at the beginning, John Lennon was divorcing from his wife.
Sorry, you did say, yeah.
Exactly. And his son was depressed because of that. And Paul was just like, I'm going to write the song for this boy to cheer him up. And basically, I feel like Paul is on a phone call with him or something like that. That's how it's like or a letter or something like that. It's like just it sounds like a really honest message from a grown up to a kid.
Yeah,
and I like it's kind of saying, I've been through that, you'll be all right, or
Exactly.
don't worry about it. So and I think that's the beautiful thing about it. Anyone can relate to that kind of situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone needed some friend to tell you that everything is going to be all right at some point.
And Julian had
okay.
it. Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's vote. So you still got the scores, right? You're keeping track
right.
of this.
Oh, we vote. Yeah. Do I have the scores? I don't know.
You took them down last time.
Did I? Oh my God! I'll find them.
Yeah. We need to keep track of it. So send me.
I'll keep track of it.
Yeah, because I wanted to add it on today. Do you remember?
Okay.
Do you have any idea?
I have them written down somewhere, man. I have millions of notes in different books and stuff.
We'll add them up.
Don't worry about it.
Because what I want to do is each episode we do, I want to accumulate the totals.
Yes.
So for this episode, it will just be another bunch. We'll just deal with these votes. And then for the next ones, Felipe will find his notes and we'll bring them together. So, original or cover? Hey Jude.
So, cover. And I'll tell you why.
Interesting, I said.
Just because the Beatles version, I've listened to that song millions and millions of times, and it's like it's just refreshing to listen to a well-known song in a way that you wouldn't expect. And that's it.
I also am going for the cover. There's a charm about it. It's charming. It has something in it that makes me want to listen to it again. And that's the difference, is that when I start Hey Jude by the Beatles, I'm sat there thinking, yes, Hey Jude by the Beatles, great song, let's do this. I'm singing along. And then when I get to the end, don't need to repeat myself, I get bored. When I get to the end of Wilson Pickett's version, I want to listen to it again. And that's the definitive proof for me. The proof is in the pudding. And that's that one for me. So interesting, we both went for the cover. So you keeping track, yeah?
Yes, I am.
2-0 to the covers. Next song. This is the one you chose, right?
Yes. Love Hurts, right?
Love Hurts.
Oh, man.
That song.
Well, this song it reminds me of my teenage years. Because, Nazareth is, I think, it's probably my dad's favorite band. And so he gave me a few CDs. And I think I had about 3 or 4 Nazareth CDs. And it's amazing how this band from Scotland made its way all the way to the countryside of Brazil. So my dad has a real knowledge of rock music, and he introduced me to Nazareth, and that was obviously one of their biggest hits. So that's how I got to know the song. But it played in the radio as well. So not only because I had a CD, I could hear the song in the radio from time to time. And I just thought, a love ballad should cause some sort of strong feelings in you. So it's just so many cheesy love ballads out there. Yeah, I think it's very easy to write something predictable and boring, intending to be a love song. And I think the original song is super cool, but what Nazareth did to that, it was to add emotion. It's dramatic. It's like it's sad and dark, and it's one of those songs that really make you want to cry. And if you're having a hard time because of a relationship, whatever, and you listen to that, and it's like it really brings up all the emotions, doesn't it? And it's I think I tend to think that ballads can be quite boring, especially love ballads. But I think we talked about this, like bands like Scorpions and Nazareth and Guns N' Roses, they are hard rock bands that can write or record versions of ballads in a way that most pop bands could never dream of. Yeah, and I think that's bands that are famous for writing heavy stuff. You think, well, can they do ballads? Usually, they do ballads better than pop bands, my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, it's interesting, this one, because when I listened to it, it did feel like it could have been a Guns N' Roses song. It could have been a Scorpions song, but I suppose this is where Nazareth fit in. They were way earlier than those bands, weren't they? This song was 70s, right?
Yeah, exactly. The original one, so to give you some information, the original one by the Everly Brothers which they didn't write. Do you have the name of the songwriter? I've lost his name here. We need to find out.
Yes, no, I had it saved here. Let me find it.
So
go on, carry on.
Yeah, so the Everly Brothers first recorded that song in October 1960, but they didn't release it as a single, so it wasn't a hit. It became a hit when Roy Orbison recorded it. So the guitar is very gentle, and the vocal harmonies sound very country. It's a typical ballad, and like loads of ballads, one thing that people don't notice about ballads is they're usually fast.
Mm.
A ballad is sometimes very smooth and very light and gentle, but the tempo can be fast.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be slow, just because
exactly. So that's like many other ballads, it's a fast tempo, and there's nothing much to the arrangement of the Everly Brothers version. Even Roy Orbison's version is very simple. It's all about the lyrics and the melody. The vocal performances are good. But in 1974, when Nazareth recorded it, I would dare to say that that's one of the best vocal performances in rock music. And for ballads at least. And as I said, it feels like, first of all, they changed the tempo. It's a lot slower.
Yeah, it is.
And that makes it darker. It makes it more dramatic. I like the effects on the guitar. I think the guitar plays a big role in that version of the song. And the opening riff is something that doesn't happen on the original. So they have that slow riff at the beginning with some cymbal hits that make it even more powerful. I really love the even the bass line makes me sad. It's like the whole thing is so dramatic. I love it. There's a lot more space. The song stops and starts all the time. So that space also it also causes a really, really nice effect, in my opinion. Interesting thing about that song, they included a guitar solo. So there's a really cool drum fill. You said it reminds of Guns N' Roses. Obviously, they took ideas from bands like Nazareth.
Yeah.
And the drum fill into the guitar solo, that's something that could be part of User Illusion of Guns N' Roses. Not even the whole song, like that bit. The drum fill that leads into the guitar solo is a short guitar solo, very melodic, typical like rock ballad stuff. The interesting story about the vocals is I think the guitar player and the singer went to a wedding. So whilst they were recording an album, they went to a friend's wedding, and the bass player, they decided to record that song, and they left. And the bass player and the drummer started working on the song. I don't know if anyone else was working on the song, but they chose the key that Emmylou Harris recorded the song. So many people recorded that song. So they chose that key, and it was a really low octave. So when they came back and the bass was already recorded, they had loads of things going on, and they had to stick to that key, in order to save time. You don't want to re-record the bass or etc. Yeah. So the singer was like, okay, this is a bit too low for me, so I'm going to have to sing one octave higher. And that was beyond his normal range.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest vocal performance he had to deliver in his whole
And that's career. Why we have what we have with this version.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's suffering because he's struggling to sing, but he managed to reach that range. Like it's on the limit of his vocal abilities. So that's why it's so strong and so emotional, I would say.
What I loved is I really did love the instrumentation of the Nazareth cover and the different textures it had, because it felt like it took you on more of a journey. Now, I have to say, with the Everly Brothers one, I really, really enjoy that song because I do feel that the poignancy and the emotion in the Everly Brothers' voices actually feels like they're in pain. And I'm not saying that the Nazareth guy doesn't, but there's just, I think the sparseness, the instrumentation, the production, the sparseness of the instruments, the simplicity of the production, it just, for me, it makes the attention be drawn more towards what he's singing about and the chord progression. So you can actually hear the chord, you can hear a minor chord, whereas in the Nazareth version, it might be a bit covered up because there might be a drum solo going on, just for an example. Yeah. So Yeah, it's an interesting one because they're very different, aren't they? In terms, the next song we're going to do, they're quite similar. It's actually quite similar, isn't it? Because you've got a hard rock band and like an old country singer.
Yeah.
That's this song and the next one as well.
This is probably the most different version, isn't it? Of
It
all
is,
of
yes.
the shows, yeah.
I think it has an epic feel to it. The Nazareth one really does. It feels like you're taking on a journey, and you feel like you're feeling the pain of the Nazareth singer, as you said, maybe because he's singing it too high, you know.
Yeah, Dan McCafferty, that's his name.
Dan McCafferty, yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal singer. I think the thing about him is like whether you like his approach or not, he doesn't sound like anyone else.
No, he's
and no one can sound like him.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys who has a unique voice for real. Like, you know, he's not trying to sound like anything. He just sounds like that. Yeah. He's really good.
So, what are you going for? You the original or the cover? I think
I'll go for the cover. I'll say this from the very beginning, the opening riff, those hits on the crash cymbals, and when he says "love hurts," the first two words with that vocal right there. If you stop the song right there, for me, it's already a classic. The way they did it, and also for personal reasons, I got to know that song when I was really young, and I fell in love with Nazareth. What a great band!
Lovely.
Anyway, so a bit of information about it as well. That was I think it was a number one in the UK. It didn't actually make it to the charts, but it was. Some countries, they observe things in different ways. It's a cultural thing, I would say. So it was number one in Canada, South Africa, Netherlands, Norway, and Belgium. In Norway, it was 14 weeks on number one. So weird, isn't it? So some countries seem to have accepted that song better than others. Anyway, your favorite version?
I prefer the original. I must say, the Nazareth one is fantastic, and I feel maybe I'm not giving it enough credit because I came away just thinking, oh well, this doesn't sound any different to like a Guns N' Roses ballad, a Scorpions ballad.
But they did it first.
That's my point. That's why I'm not giving it enough credit, maybe because this is where the rock power ballad came from. You know, Nazareth doing the cover of "Love Hurts." And it is a fantastic cover, I must say. You know, there's no reason for me not to like it. The instrumentation, the dynamics as well, man. You know, it's just got that section. I can't remember where it is in the song, but there is just a section where it's silent for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
The note rings out, the vocals die down, it just goes down. Then it brings back up, and then they're into the next section. That's what the original doesn't have. The original just does sound like a Bob Dylan song, a Everly Brothers song, a Roy Orbison song, where they're just playing away, doing the lyrics, playing the chords. Not much. You don't feel like much attention in those days were given to things like dynamics.
I think it just made me think that a good cover makes you focus on something else. Like, as you said, the original the original is more about the lyrics, maybe, as you said. The band makes a bigger impact on the cover versions, and it's more about the guitar than even though the vocals are phenomenal, in my opinion. It's more about the guitar than anything else. The guitar makes it different. So my point would be, if there's something about that song that makes it completely different in a positive way compared to the original, is the guitar.
There we go.
I would say that, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So at the moment we're sitting on 3-1 to the covers for this episode.
Yeah.
Next song is one chosen by one of our listeners, and this is "Pretty Woman" by Van Halen, the original by Roy Orbison. I think, I'll tell you what I really liked about this is having known what we've done. You know, we've done 2 David Lee Roth albums, haven't we? We've done Van Halen 1 and we've done Eat 'Em and Smile.
Yeah. Well, that's not Eat 'Em and Smile is sorry. Yeah, you didn't say 2 Van Halen albums, it's 2 David Lee Roth albums. Yeah. Exactly.
Knowing what we know about David Lee Roth and what he can do with his voice and the emphasis he can put in certain places, I actually welcomed him keeping the vocals like the original. I was expecting something a bit eccentric, a bit extravagant, a bit glam metal-y, but the song is very similar to the original, and I actually welcomed that. I thought that was really nice. It feels like, compared to the original, there is more going on in the song to keep me interested. when I listen to the original, it is very, you know, I was talking about the journeys, the Beatles take you up and Wilson Pickett stayed there and then took you up, whatever. Roy Orbison's version, as much as I like it and as brilliant as a song it is, it just kind of sits there, doesn't it? It doesn't really elevate or take you up and down, bring you with it or anything. With the Van Halen version, I did feel like there was more going on, more to sort of keep your ears occupied. Once you heard the first verse and the first chorus, you're thinking, okay, right, now we've got the same again. What's going to be different? And with Van Halen, there was little elements there that changed it. One thing I did prefer in the original version was the bridge. So I love that section. It goes, pretty woman, stop and stare, and in Orbison's version, there's a piano that comes in that is that difference. Remember what I just said about how something needs to change to sort of keep your ears interested. In Roy Orbison's version, that bridge where it comes in with those little pianos, that's beautiful. But the Van Halen version, I think, is a really, really good cover. What do you think?
I think it's an amazing cover because they were not like as self-indulgent as they usually are, or pretentious in a certain way. They like musically very pretentious, isn't it?
They respected the original, didn't they?
I think that's one of those cases when they like the song so much they didn't want to mess up with it. The reason why they recorded that as well, like they released, I think, as a single before the album, is because we did. Let me check the year here. That was in 1982. So basically, when they finished the tour and they were about to start working on an album, they got together and said, there's going to be a gap between the tour and the next album.
Yeah.
You need to do something, which, bands need to stay relevant for as long as possible. And if the media is not talking about you for a couple of months, it's hard to build up their, the whole marketing thing around the band. So basically they wanted to release a single quickly, just release something so you have something to play on the radio whilst you're preparing the next album. So I think Lee Roth or Eddie, I don't know who said, like, let's just do a cover then because that's easier. We just learn a song that we already like. Yeah, so that was the idea. So let's just record something that we already know how to play, whatever. And so I think they tried a few different songs, but basically they decided to go for this song because they loved it. And I like the fact that they it's almost like they know they're going to sound like themselves. So it's a natural approach. Let's just play, because Eddie Van Halen couldn't sound like anyone else. Is one of those cases. He's such a unique player, and he's got his own sound. Even if he plays something note by note like any other song, he would sound like himself. There's no way Van Halen playing a song wouldn't be different, or he wouldn't bring any innovation. So I think the good thing is they didn't try too hard in a good way. Let's not try to make it a complete different thing out of a beautiful song like that. So that's respectful and it's effective. The tempo is pretty much the same. The Motown vibe on the drums is just heavier, but it's the same thing. And it's not much heavier than the original, apart from the bridge. And it's so cool that you prefer the original bridge. I prefer the cover. I prefer the original overall until this point. And I think the drumming is a lot heavier for the bridge. It's just smashing the cymbals, and it sounds so cool. And I think, there's an extra riff at the beginning of the song, which a couple of bars before the main riff, that builds up some tension. You're like, well, which song is this? You don't know it's Pretty Woman because it doesn't start with the iconic riff. It starts with something else. There's a build up. And I think there was a small contribution they made to the song without drastically changing anything. So I like that. I think they did a phenomenal job, really.
Excellent. Okay, then, what do you prefer?
The original.
Interesting. Okay. I actually prefer the cover.
So let's.
There we go. So what's it now?
Actually, the score
5-2 to the cover. To the.
Oh yes. So we got like cover Laz and original Felipe. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 for covers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. What is it?
Four against
Yeah,
two. Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to the last one for this episode. Now, this is a song called Godzilla, and the cover is by a band called Fu Manchu, and the original is by a band called Blue Oyster Cult. Now, this is another song suggested by one of our listeners. So thank you for the last song, Pretty Woman, and this one, because ultimately I'd never heard this song, the original or the cover. So to come in fresh, no opinions, no predetermined, I did like Blue Oyster Cult, I'm not sure about Fu Manchu. To come in with a fresh perspective on it, I really enjoyed. I liked having this. So, as I said at the start of the episode, when you're checking out these episodes, please give us some of your favourite covers as well, so that when we come and do part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of this, we're going to have some more stuff to get into. What did you think, Felipe, about the original?
I think it sounds like a cartoon soundtrack.
Okay,
I think the guitarist was the guy who wrote the song up, apparently. So
have you ever listened to this band? Sorry, have you ever heard?
They have one of the most famous cowbell songs in the world, isn't it? Forgot the name of the song. My God, how did I forget? You know the More Cowbell sketch from Saturday Night Live?
Is that
that's one of their songs? Yeah. Forgot the name of that song. God, such a famous song. It's ridiculous that I don't know the name.
Tell me about your thoughts. I'll find the song.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, come on. Just Google it, and you're gonna just say More Cowbell sketch. You're gonna see which song we're talking about. And I think it's one of their songs. So I said it sounds like a cartoon soundtrack because it's basically talking about the characters. It's talking about Godzilla. And it's just Godzilla coming and destroying Tokyo, isn't it? It's just that. It's a short. The lyrics are quite like straight to the point.
Yeah.
And there's a part in Japanese where someone talking about. It's just like the news talking about Godzilla approaching the city, telling people to run for shelter or whatever. So basically, I think the chorus is quite catchy, and the way they deliver it is. It sounds almost like a joke. I wouldn't take that song too seriously. So I like it because it's fun. It's just like almost naive.
Yeah.
It's just singing about a character that everyone knows. There's nothing like, there's nothing too deep about it. It's just that Godzilla's coming to destroy Tokyo. That's what it is. And it was written in a hotel room. So apparently the guitar player started playing the riff. So, came up with a riff. Oh, this riff, for some reason, reminds me of Godzilla. So I'm going to write a song about Godzilla.
Brilliant. So, in contrast, what did you think of the cover?
Interesting. I think what makes it completely different is the tempo. That's one of the biggest things that, like in terms of music production and arrangements, the tempo is one of the most important choices a band makes when recording a song. And it's so serious that you can completely ruin a song by picking the wrong tempo, by playing it too fast or too slow. Absolutely. And they deliberately made it a lot slower. And what I like about it, so the original was released in 1977 and this cover in 1997. So 20 years apart. But I'll be honest with you, what I like the most about the cover is it could have been released in 1977. It sounds like classic rock. The guitar is very distorted. It's heavy enough, but not like more than metal. It sounds like classic rock to me. It sounds like a 70s band. I'm not familiar with this band at all, so it's a really good surprise. Do you know who recommended this? Who suggested this?
A gentleman who I used to. He plays in a band. So when I lived in Bedford and I used to play with my metal band, he used to be in another band that played alongside us, or various stuff. So a gentleman called Peter. I can't remember his name. I can't remember the surname. Peter, I'm sorry, mate, because nowadays we just see people we just see their Instagram name, don't we? And
I'll tell you so from a different cultural background. Surnames are a very British thing. In Latin America, we only remember people by their first name. So Peter, thank you so much. Regardless of your surname, Peter.
He actually does follow us, so I'm going to find him and give him a shout out when I.
So I think thanks for people who contributed with this, because it's a new band to me, and And I love bands that are not that old but sound like they're from the 70s.
Here we go. Here he is. Peter Robert Alexander Hunt. So Peter Hunt, yeah. Peter, thank you. And the last person, the person who chose Van Halen was Alfie Haig, who was a guy who came to see you and me play with Jack in Cornwall.
Oh, right.
So cool. His mum taught us. His mum taught me English at school.
Oh, wow.
And so he came and saw you. He came and saw you and me play with Jack back in Cornwall like a year ago. Yeah. And then he's been a follower and a listener of the podcast since. So thank you very much to Peter and Alfie for these suggestions. But yeah, one thing I found interesting, the Fu Manchu cover, it really reminded me of the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
It had that kind of weird hybrid between spoken word / rap and metal. Now I know.
Interesting. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it just came to me. That's something that I really felt that I heard of that. And I don't want to insult Blue Oyster Cult or their fans, but I do understand what you're saying about the song sounding a little gimmicky, the original. Whereas the Fu Manchu version, I felt it emphasized the seriousness of the song they're trying. Does that make sense? I think I'm even confused.
Well,
myself.
It made it serious then, because I don't think it's originally.
That's what I mean. The original cover made me take the song seriously, and is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if I'm not entirely sure, but the chorus didn't have as much of an impact with the Fu Manchu cover. It had I thought the original, the sections were better defined. You could tell when you were going from one section to another. But whereas with the Fu Manchu version, it got to the chorus because you hear him say Godzilla, and you're like, "Whoa, shit! Were we in the chorus already?" Like that. And that's not criticism, because do you know who else this band? This cover, I can literally, for me, I'll marry two bands, and this is what you get: Beastie Boys, The White Stripes. Boom, and you get this Fu Manchu cover because it had that rawness, it had that heaviness that Jack White was so instrumental in bringing to the White Stripes early on in the White Stripes career, where you just focus on simple guitar riffs and a simple drum beat behind.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I just said I feel like the music of the cover suits this version more. Yeah, it's the same riff, it's just slower. So yeah. Do you have anything to say about it?
No, I would say there's not an easy decision for me to say, is the cover better or not? I prefer the original for this one. Yeah. Maybe because it doesn't take it too serious. It's funny because we notice the same elements in both versions of the song.
But we're interpreting it differently.
We just prefer a different approach. That's what it is. And so I would go for the original. You're going for the cover. So basically now we've got 1, 2, 5, 3, 4 covers today. So
there we go. So for today, I don't think I actually officially said I was going for the cover.
I know you're going for the cover, aren't you? Dude, are you not?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. Yeah,
of course you are. You
know me too well.
That's what you said.
So there we go. 5-3 today in favour of the covers. I wish we had the scores. But guys, for the next episode, we will have all the scores there for us. I feel like last time we also preferred the covers.
Yeah, covers won last time. I don't know if it was. Yeah.
Hendrix, I'm fairly sure the covers won. Yeah. So the covers seem to be doing it. This is interesting though, isn't it? Because whilst we always have the originals to look back on and thank for giving us this song, I think you've nailed it when you said earlier, or kind of like we both said, that isn't it interesting that when a band does a cover and identifies something that the original is missing, that can fill the gap for some listeners.
Some musicians have that sensibility of finding something in a song that no one else would find.
Yeah,
knowing it's not there, or bringing something to a song that adds to it, and it doesn't damage the actual feeling behind the song. It's just bring something extra, isn't it?
There you go. There we go. Another covers episode done. So thank you very much, guys, for all the for joining us, and especially to Alfie and Peter for the cover suggestions. Like I said, we don't know.
Audience participation.
Audience participation. There we go. We don't know when the next covers episode we're going to be. We're not going to do like 9 in a row because we're missing albums too much, aren't we?
Yeah.
But whenever the next one comes along, we've got a list of about 10 to 15 more covers from you guys that we're going to do. We're going to do a Laz cover, a Felipe cover, and then 1 or 2 of you guys covers. But keep them coming, because the more you guys keep giving us the covers, the more stuff we're going to have to do episodes. So yeah, thank you for joining us once again on this Long Live Rock and Roll podcast episode. I gave you the speech at the beginning, but I'll do a shortened version now at the end. Please do us a favour and get on social media, like our stuff, comment on our stuff. Any question we ask, I know we put videos out there saying, what do you think of this album? Comment on it. Let us know what you think. Get some interaction going, because, whilst we'd love to interact with you as well, it helps us. The more that people comment on our stuff, the more that our stuff gets boosted to the top of the pile and people see us more. It means we get more viewers, more listeners, and that can only be a better thing for our podcast. So once again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Keep on rocking, everyone.
And as usual, take care and long live rock and roll.